Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and welcome to the channel. I have an urgent warning for you about the price of Bitcoin. It's headed to places where I don't think a lot of people expect. We're going to jump on into the charts and discuss exactly where the price of Bitcoin is headed in the near future and why I think the downside for Bitcoin price action is almost over. So without further ado, let's check out the charts. Now, here we have Bitcoin on a daily time frame. As you can see, first things first, just ignore my blue line. This is actually a line I drew as a predictive measure on where I think the market is going. I drew it right here on this day around October 24th. And essentially we overshot my target when I thought we were going to kind of consolidate and go sideways for the remainder of the year. So far we've kind of dipped and are finding support. So I do expect more sideways before a potential bottom is formed. So just ignore my line, but that stays on the chart as it is an accurate prediction so far, so I'd like to save it. Anyway, moving on to the daily analysis of Bitcoin, we had a breakdown and failed retest twice to reclaim this former support zone around 90K, let's call it. Constantly tapping off of this, forming this upward boundary and this overall range. We then bled through and are now playing out a downside move where we essentially have covered most of our targets to the downside. We still have this initial pump zone where we never really back tested. So we still have a zone at 73.6 that we're watching for any potential drawdown. So what I actually think is going on in the market, despite having several updates this week and several days essentially of choppiness, intraday price action has been very difficult to day trade and scalp. So we're looking at larger time frames. We're looking at the larger move to kind of avoid the volatility and dodge all the noise and not get essentially chopped up in this ranging market on short time frames. So what I believe is happening here, we had a zone. If I just zoom in, we had this area of interest, if I can find the right tool. Here we are. We had this area of interest here that we broke down from and essentially just retested this week. So this area here around 86K, I'll just go to 4-hour time frame so we can see it a little better. This area here is initially where we broke down from. We found support, we failed to go higher and set a new high, and then ultimately we bled down. So now retracing this move is the first step, but reclaiming this zone is very important in order to remain bullish. If we don't reclaim this 86.9K region, then I do think further downside is in order. On the higher time frames, such as the daily, we do have money flow coming down aggressively in RSI, staying essentially below the 50 read, as well as regular RSI in this neutral zone where if it rejects from this read around 40 to 44, I do believe that there is further downside. And this would form, if price comes down, a triple tap. So if price gets rejected here and kind of comes down and taps this region that I have highlighted at the bottom around 73.9K, that would be your 1, 2, and then if I just get this chart out of the way, third bottom. So we have a triple tap in play. We would have RSI forming 1, 2, and then hopefully a third higher high, while price forming lower lows. That would be bullish divergence. That would be the confirmation that I do believe the reversal would be in. We would start to reclaim these former resistance zones as support, and then we would ultimately move higher in the market. That would also validate other structures for Bitcoin, meaning the structure that I've been watching and mentioning in prior videos is a deviation play where we form some kind of bottom and reversal below this range. So then we reclaim this former range as support. Could look something like this. Could be a lot more aggressive, to be honest. Reclaim this zone as support, then ultimately I'd be targeting these former highs. Once you reclaim that, I'd say probably around 122 would be your next zone. I'll explain why that's a target of mine in a future video. Essentially, it's a Fibonacci level, but I'll go more in depth when I do a more macro analysis on Bitcoin. For now, this is just focusing on kind of daily and 4-hour time frames, which I think are the most traded and the most relevant to those watching the market. So just kind of bear with me while I just clean up my chart here. Those are kind of just predictive measures that I think you should be watching out for as a trader and as an investor, not getting too upset or scared when the market does come back down lower. Essentially, like the title suggests, I do think the 70K region is not out of the question yet. Essentially, we only had 1 or 2 taps below 80K. Going any lower than this still is validating an upside, an overall bullish structure in the market. As long as you're not losing these lows around 70K, as long as you're not going below 70K, I do think you're just correcting and you are still in an overall uptrend. Therefore, selling at this point in the market, I don't think is the wise move. I think if you've retraced 30%, nearly 29% from all-time highs, it is not a time to be selling. These are typical corrections in Bitcoin cycles. You do have large 20 to 30% corrections. Past cycles have seen 40 to 50% corrections before entering bear market structure. So we haven't even had a dead cat bounce. We haven't even had a lower high take place. We haven't even had something like this take place. And until we get at least a dead cat bounce and a lower high forming, and then settling under this structure, under this range again, I'm not going to be bearish long term. I'm still going to be looking for this to form a bottom, whether we get a nice V-shaped recovery here and this is the ultimate low, or we come back down and retest, forming 3 drives of bullish divergence and forming this triple tap. Those are key bottoming structures that I always look forward to and watch out for when in an overall bullish trend in the market. So long story short, if you are in Bitcoin, nothing to worry about. You could see mid to low 70Ks and still be in a bull market. So that is something you need to prepare for as a trader or as an investor. Just be mindful, prepare yourself for further downside to come. However, if you are just holding spot positions, riding this out is ultimately going to be your best bet, and just DCAing when you get into lower price ranges. Are you going to time the absolute bottom? No. But if you're buying sub 80K Bitcoin, thinking it's going to go higher, it is a very good spot to average into a position, because ultimately, if you look at a higher turn time frame, if you have the belief that this is going higher, which ultimately I do, you would be under the presumption that you would reclaim these highs. So if you're averaging in around 80, or even at current price levels, you're still looking at a 30% gain to all-time highs. And then once you break that, ultimately a 40 to 50% gain is what I'd be looking at from current levels. Whereas your drawdown potential from this range is going to be a lot less, half of that essentially, before you find a definite support zone. So stay safe in the market. Don't panic when things get difficult and essentially volatile. Just stay calm, stay level-headed, and keep yourself in check. Thanks for tuning into the channel. If you found any of this content valuable, please leave a like or a comment as to what content you want to see in the future. I have done a few altcoins such as Ethereum, even Fartboy. Check those videos out on my channel if you haven't already, if that's something that interests you. If you want to see more Bitcoin or more of my computer setup or just my day trading setup in general, drop a comment and I can put those videos together for you in the future. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification to stay up to date with future videos, and stay safe in this market. Let's grow together.